Did you know that hundreds of Native American tribes vanished from the Southeast before 1830? This massive loss of distinct tribal groups could be a key factor in why some African Americans don't see Native American results on their DNA tests, despite oral histories pointing to that ancestry. Let's explore what happened to these lost tribes and how their disappearance still affects genealogical research today. You'll learn how to trace Native American ancestry, even if you don't know the tribe. Finally, we'll explore the deep connections between Native Americans and enslaved Africans and how their histories are intertwined. Greetings and welcome. I'm Carolyn A. from GettingToTheRoots.com, where I help African American families uncover their ancestry through proven research methods and DNA insights. We uncover the past and bring your history to light. Let's dive in. Adai, a Cadone-speaking tribe in western Louisiana, they were weakened by disease and warfare and eventually disappeared by the early 19th century. Akalapissa, a tribe that lived in the area of Louisiana and Mississippi. They suffered population decline due to disease and warfare and were eventually absorbed by other tribes. Akakisa, a coastal tribe in Texas, they were absorbed by other tribes or disappeared due to disease and displacement. Appalachee, a powerful tribe in Florida, they were decimated by disease and warfare in the 17th and 18th centuries. The remaining members were absorbed into other tribes or fled. Avoyelles, a small tribe in Louisiana, they were closely related to the Natchez and shared a similar fate, being destroyed by the French in the early 18th century. Bayagula, another small tribe in Louisiana, they were also decimated by disease and warfare in the 18th century. Calusa, a powerful tribe in southwest Florida, they resisted Spanish colonization, but were eventually wiped out by disease and warfare in the 18th century. Catawba, several smaller tribes were associated with the Catawba in South Carolina. Like the Catawba, they suffered greatly from disease, warfare, and displacement. Many were likely absorbed by the Catawba or other larger groups, losing their individual tribal identities. Chacchiuma, a small tribe in Mississippi, they were absorbed by the Choctaw and Chickasaw in the 18th century. Chura, a tribe that lived in the Carolinas and Virginia. They were significantly impacted by disease and warfare and eventually merged with other tribes, particularly the Catawba. Their distinct identity was lost. Chowanok, and Nusiak, and Corey, and Algonquian-speaking tribes in North Carolina, they were weakened by disease and warfare and eventually disappeared by the early 18th century. Hatteras, a small tribe in North Carolina, they were absorbed by other tribes or disappeared due to disease and displacement. Maniac, a small tribe in Florida, they were absorbed by the Seminole in the 18th century. Mattapique, an Algonquian-speaking tribe in Virginia, they were weakened by disease and warfare and eventually disappeared by the early 18th century. Mugalacha, a small tribe in Mississippi, they were destroyed by the French in the early 18th century. Okaloosa, a small tribe in Louisiana, they were absorbed by other tribes or disappeared due to disease and displacement. PD, a tribe that lived along the PD River in North and South Carolina. They faced pressure from European colonization and were eventually absorbed by larger neighboring tribes, losing their unique identity. Saturua, a Timucuan-speaking tribe in Florida, they were wiped out by disease and warfare in the 17th century. Sioux, a small tribe in South Carolina, they were wiped out by disease and warfare in the 18th century. Timucua, a major tribe in Florida, they suffered greatly from disease and Spanish colonization and were extinct by the early 19th century. Wando and Winya, small tribes in South Carolina, they were absorbed by other tribes or disappeared due to disease and displacement. Now that we've learned about some of the tribes that disappeared or were absorbed over time, you may be wondering, how do you trace Native American ancestry if you don't even know which tribe your ancestors belong to? Here's how you can begin your search, even without that crucial piece of information. Tracing native ancestry without knowing the tribe requires patience and a combination of oral history, historical records, and genetic research. The first step is gathering oral history from elders in the family. Asking about old family stories, traditions, and possible native connections can provide clues about tribal affiliations. Names can also be a strong indicator, as some indigenous surnames were passed down or adapted over time. Paying attention to where ancestors lived is just as important since certain areas had more native communities than others. Identifying key locations can help focus research on specific tribal histories. Historical records are essential for uncovering native ancestry, especially since racial classifications often changed over time. The 1910 U.S. Census included Indian as a racial category, but many native individuals were later reclassified as black or mulatto to erase indigenous identity, a practice known as paper genocide. Reviewing census records across different years can reveal shifts in racial classifications that may indicate native ancestry. The Freedmen's Bureau, Dawes Rolls, and other tribal records can also provide valuable insights. African Americans and mixed heritage individuals were sometimes recorded in Freedmen's Bureau records after the Civil War, particularly if they lived in communities with strong native connections. The Dawes Rolls, compiled between 1898 and 1914, listed members of the 5 civilized tribes, though many applications were rejected. The Eastern Cherokee applications from 1906 to 1909 recorded Cherokee descendants and can be a useful resource for those with Cherokee ancestry. Land and court records can be another avenue for research. Some mixed African native families received land under the Homestead Act of 1862, which granted land to settlers, including some Native Americans. Probate and estate records may mention native ancestors, particularly if land or inheritance disputes arose involving tribal members. These documents can sometimes link families to specific tribal groups. DNA testing can be a helpful but sometimes limited tool. Native American DNA is often underrepresented in databases, making it difficult to confirm tribal connections. However, testing can provide migration clues and help identify indigenous ancestry through haplogroups and maternal or paternal DNA lines. Even if direct tribal matches do not appear, the results may suggest broader indigenous heritage that can be explored further through historical records and family research. So, you're looking for your native ancestors. But the story doesn't end there. Let's explore the complex relationship between Native Americans and enslaved Africans. A crucial piece of the puzzle. The relationship between Native Americans and enslaved Africans was complex and varied. Some tribes, most notably the Cherokee, Choctaw, Creek, Chickasaw, and Seminole, practiced a form of slavery. It's crucial to acknowledge this history. However, the nature of slavery among Native American tribes often differed significantly from the chattel slavery practiced by Europeans. While some practices were similar, in some instances, enslaved people could be adopted into the tribe over time, blurring the lines of ownership in some cases. After the Civil War, the freedmen of these tribes faced considerable challenges in gaining recognition as tribal members, a struggle that continues in some forms today. Regarding assistance to escaping enslaved Africans, certain Native communities, particularly the Seminole in Florida, are known to have provided refuge. The Black Seminoles, descendants of these alliances, created communities and fought alongside their Native allies against the U.S. military in defense of their shared freedom. This alliance demonstrates a powerful example of interracial cooperation against oppression. Intermarriage between Native Americans and African Americans did occur, especially among runaway enslaved people who sought and found refuge within Native communities. The degree to which these unions were accepted and integrated varied across tribes. Some tribes fully incorporated individuals of mixed African and Native descent into their societies, while others maintained distinctions, sometimes creating separate social classes. It is important to note that even in tribes with less strict forms of slavery, the system was still exploitative and oppressive. That's a wrap. Want to know how to use DNA to find your ancestors? Check out Using DNA to Trace Ancestry next. Link in the description. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and join our email list for more tips and resources. Thanks for watching. Peace and love.